Before streaming outrage and instant backlash, there was a decade when comedy tested every boundary it could find. The 1980s laughed loudly and rarely looked back. These films packed theaters and shaped pop culture. Today, many of them would ignite firestorms before the opening weekend even arrived. What changed? And were they fearless or simply careless? Let us step back into that era and examine 8 classics now standing on unstable ground. Like Soul Man, 1986. In 1986, a major studio released a campus comedy built around a premise that now feels almost unimaginable. A privileged white law student darkens his skin and alters his appearance to qualify for a scholarship intended for black students. The transformation is presented as clever strategy. The audience is invited to laugh at the deception. From the moment it premiered, the backlash was real. Civil rights leaders condemned it. Student groups protested screenings. Many argued that it reduced lived experience to costume and makeup. The studio insisted the film was satire aimed at entitlement. Yet satire depends on clarity. Here the joke never fully separates from the stereotype. Posters and trailers leaned into the visual shock of the disguise. That image alone would dominate headlines today. The story attempts redemption. By the final act, the protagonist claims he understands discrimination. But the narrative still frames the journey through his awakening. The community he impersonates remains secondary. Modern storytelling standards demand accountability and perspective. Today, a production built on this premise would likely stall before release. Social media reaction would be swift and unforgiving, which forces a question that hangs over this entire list. When comedy uses identity as a punchline, who exactly is meant to be laughing? Revenge of the Nerds, 1984. 2 years earlier, a different college comedy captured the underdog fantasy of the decade. Awkward outsiders fight back against smug athletes. The film became a cultural touchstone. Catchphrases entered dorm rooms. Audiences rooted for the misfits. On the surface, it feels like a simple tale of empowerment. Yet buried within the story is a moment that has not aged well. One character disguises himself during a party and becomes intimate with a woman who believes he is someone else. The scene is staged as a victory, the hero is rewarded, the music swells, laughter fills the theater. Today, that sequence lands very differently. Deception in a romantic encounter raises serious ethical concerns. Consent requires clarity and honesty. Modern viewers re-examining the film often identify this as its most troubling element. What once passed as mischievous bravado now reads as manipulation. The 80s often equated boldness with humor, shock value carried applause, but cultural standards evolve. Studios now navigate stricter conversations around agency and respect. A script containing that scene would face immediate revision or cancellation, and as we move forward, the tension deepens because the next films lean even harder into controversy. Porky's, 1981. Before college comedies found Polish, they found provocation. In 1981, this film exploded at the box office. Despite harsh reviews, set in the 1950s, it follows a group of high school boys obsessed with humiliation pranks and conquest bragging. The tone is loud, the jokes are blunt. The goal is escalation. Its most infamous sequence involves spying through a hole in a shower wall to watch girls bathe. The scene is designed for shock laughter. Authority figures become the punchline, the victims become props. Audiences in the early 80s packed theaters anyway. The film earned enormous profits and helped launch an entire wave of teen comedies built on embarrassment and boundary pushing. Today, that shower scene would dominate every headline. Voyeurism presented as harmless fun no longer slides by without scrutiny. Modern standards emphasize privacy and dignity. A script structured around invasive gags would likely be rewritten or abandoned before production. Distributors would weigh reputational damage long before opening weekend. Yet historically, the film matters. It demonstrated how far studios believed they could push adolescent humor. It also revealed how cultural tolerance shifts over time. What once felt rebellious now feels reckless. And if that was the starting point, the next entry sharpened the same formula with glossy charm. 16 Candles, 1984. 3 years later, a coming-of-age comedy arrived with softer lighting and a heartfelt soundtrack. Directed by John Hughes, It told the story of a girl whose 16th birthday is forgotten by her family. The film helped define the teen movie template of the decade. It launched careers and shaped pop culture memory, but alongside its sweetness sits material that draws intense criticism today. So, a foreign exchange student is written as a walking stereotype. His accent and mannerisms are exaggerated for laughs. The joke repeats so often that it becomes the character. Modern viewers frequently cite this portrayal as racially insensitive and reductive. Another subplot involves a heavily intoxicated young woman whose boyfriend casually hands her car keys to another boy with suggestive implication. The moment is played as comic convenience. Contemporary audiences question the message about responsibility and consent. What complicates the debate is affection. Many grew up loving this film. Its emotional beats still resonate, yet nostalgia does not erase problematic elements. Studios today face heightened awareness around representation. Characters reduced to caricature rarely pass unchallenged, so the countdown tightens, because the next film pushes satire into territory that feels even more combustible. The Toy, 1982. In 1982, a major studio released a comedy starring Richard Pryor that attempted satire through exaggeration. The premise is disarming at first. A struggling journalist is purchased as a plaything for the spoiled son of a ruthless millionaire. The title itself signals the discomfort. A grown man becomes property in a transaction meant to expose wealth and arrogance. The film was adapted from a French story and reshaped for American audiences. Pryor brought warmth and sharp timing to the role. The early scenes aimed to critique privilege and corporate greed. Yet the imagery of a wealthy white businessman buying a black man as entertainment created unease even in its own era. Critics were divided. Some saw biting social commentary, others saw a premise too volatile to land safely. Today, the optics would overshadow the satire instantly. Marketing departments would struggle to frame the narrative without igniting outrage. Social media would dissect every trailer frame. The conversation would shift from humor to history within hours. Modern studios are acutely aware of symbolism. Context matters, power dynamics matter. Intention alone would not quiet backlash. Still, the film reflects a moment in time when Hollywood believed star charisma could soften difficult imagery. Pryor himself walked a fine line between subversion and mainstream appeal. The story ultimately pivots toward friendship and moral reckoning. Yet the core concept remains jarring, and as the ranking climbs, the next entry trades racial discomfort for something equally explosive. Bachelor Party, 1984, released the same year as several other teen comedies, this film pushed chaos as its primary engine. It follows a soon-to-be groom whose friends organize a night of escalating absurdity. The tone is manic. The humor thrives on humiliation and shock. Tom Hanks, before his dramatic reinvention, plays the wide-eyed center of the storm. The narrative unfolds inside hotel rooms filled with outrageous gags. Exotic dancers arrive. Animals wander through hallways. Rival suitors scheme. Authority figures are mocked. The film leans into the idea that pre-marriage freedom must be wild and unrestrained. Audiences in the 80s embraced the energy. It performed strongly at the box office and became a cable staple. Yet much of the comedy relies on degrading portrayals of women and transactional relationships. Characters are reduced to punchlines. Scenes that once read as rowdy now feel careless. Modern viewers scrutinize how humor frames power and respect. A script built on these beats would undergo significant revision today. Studios navigate far more visible public accountability. What makes this film intriguing is the career contrast. Hanks later became synonymous with sincerity and moral steadiness. Watching his early role through a contemporary lens feels almost surreal. Cultural memory evolves, performers evolve, standards evolve, and the closer we get to number one, the sharper the tension becomes, because the final two entries are not just controversial, they are foundational to the debate itself. Stripes, 1981. In 1981, a different kind of rebellion marched onto screens. This time the setting was military training. The story follows two directionless friends who enlist on impulse after losing their jobs. The film blends anti-authority humor with slapstick chaos. Bill Murray anchors the narrative with loose improvisational energy that became his signature during that era. At first glance, the movie feels like harmless satire aimed at rigid institutions. Drill instructors bark commands, recruits stumble through exercises. The humor comes from incompetence colliding with discipline. Audiences responded. The film became a commercial success and cemented Murray as a leading comedic force. Yet layered within the laughter are portrayals that now draw sharper criticism. Female military police officers are often framed through appearance rather than competence. Jokes rely on conquest boasting and casual dismissal of boundaries. Dialogue that once passed as edgy now lands as dated. Modern military comedies tend to balance irreverence with awareness. And this film reflects a period when broad caricature carried fewer consequences. It is also a snapshot of early 80s masculinity. The protagonists treat service less as duty and more as playground. That tone resonated during a time when Vietnam still shadowed public trust. Satire became a way to deflate authority, but cultural standards surrounding representation and respect have shifted dramatically. If released unchanged today, the screenplay would likely face heavy rewrites. Sensitivity readers would question character dynamics. Marketing teams would brace for online debate. What once felt like carefree mockery now sits under a more analytical lens, and now we reach the top. The most beloved entry on this list may also be the most surprising, because nostalgia can sometimes hide the sharpest edges. Caddyshack, 1980. In 1980, a golf course became the stage for anarchic comedy. This film brought together Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, Rodney Dangerfield, and a mischievous gopher that stole scenes without speaking a word. The production itself was famously chaotic, with improvisation shaping much of the dialogue. The result felt spontaneous and rebellious. At its core, the story pits working-class ambition against country club elitism. Dangerfield plays a brash developer who challenges the established order. Murray portrays an obsessive groundskeeper locked in battle with the gopher. The humor flows from class tension and absurd confrontation. Audiences embraced the unpredictability. Over time, the movie became a cultural institution quoted across generations, yet revisiting it reveals elements that would spark intense discussion today. Several jokes hinge on racial stereotypes delivered for quick laughs. Women are frequently framed through objectifying humor. Certain scenes treat casual disrespect as part of the fun. In the early 80s, such gags were often dismissed as harmless irreverence. In the present era, they trigger immediate online debate. What makes this ranking complex is affection. Many viewers cherish the film for its wit and iconic performances. It remains influential in shaping ensemble comedies, but influence does not shield it from reassessment. Modern studios weigh global audiences and digital backlash before greenlighting similar material. If introduced today without revision, the film would encounter waves of criticism before opening weekend. Its improvisational freedom would be scrutinized line by line. That tension between legacy and liability is precisely why it stands at number one. Because sometimes the most loved classics reveal the clearest picture of how much the culture has changed. Comedy evolves because culture evolves. What once drew applause now invites debate. These films remain time capsules of their era, bold, flawed, influential. The question is not whether they existed, it is whether we can learn from them. Laughter never stands still. It reflects who we were and who we are becoming.